Okay, we're going to get going since it seems like we have a good crowd here already. My name's Gary Kibel, and I'm a partner with the law firm of Davis & Gilbert in New York. And this session is Social Media, a Marketing Bonanza, because these days every presentation and every session must have the word social media in them. Very important. I'd like to have my panelists introduce themselves to you, and then we all have a couple of prepared slides, and then we'd like to open it up for a fairly robust discussion. So, Sal?
Hi, my name is Sal Conca. I'm the Director of Affiliate Marketing for NetExponent. We're a full-service online marketing agency. We manage affiliate programs and paid search for our clients like Dick's Sporting Goods, Audible.com, and many more.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wade Sisson, and I'm the Director of Marketing for Schaaf-PartnerCentric. We manage affiliate programs and recruit affiliates, and I'm also the podcaster of Affiliate Marketing Insider on Webmaster Radio.
Okay, so I'm just going to relocate up here. For those of you who have been in other sessions, for questions, you're supposed to send in your questions by SMS text. I haven't quite figured out how I'm supposed to then receive them, but we'll figure it out. So we might have to go old-fashioned and raise your hand after a while. So I'm going to talk about a few things. As I mentioned, I'm an attorney. We represent a lot of ad agencies and marketers, and social media is just what everybody is dealing with these days. Every time the phone rings, it's a social media question and a new social media campaign. And as an attorney, there are some rules of the road that people need to be advised about. Sal and Wade are going to talk to you about some great ways to execute, and then I'm going to talk to you about some ideas of things you need to think about before you execute so that you don't have any legal problems in connection with the campaign. I like this cartoon about evolution of communication in the world, from written word to movable type, mass production email, down to Twitter, 140 characters. It's amazing how we're now trying to cut our messages down to such a short amount of words. And when people ask me, what is social media, I like to point to this slide. A little mixture of narcissism, stalking, ADHD, and right in the middle, there is Twitter. Okay, so when you guys go and use social media, I'm sure you all go to your sites, you log in, you get right to work, put in your password, go to your account, you've got it saved. Well, what does a lawyer do? We look at the terms down at the bottom, because every service has terms. And believe it or not, these terms are very, very important to your campaigns. Facebook has been updating their terms. They update them regularly. I think the last update was December 10th. And some of their key terms are their statement of rights and responsibilities, which is pretty much the terms of service. That's the basic terms you see on the first page. Then they have guidelines if you're going to do a sweepstakes or a contest or a promotion. There were actually very big changes to the promotion guidelines 2 months ago, because you used to have to pre-clear with them every sweepstakes. Now you can engage in a sweepstakes on Facebook right away without their approval. But again, there are some rules you need to follow. They have platform guidelines if you're going to develop an application. For those of you who have done a lot of work on Facebook, you'll see if you dig into the rules, there's much more latitude on what you can do in an application as opposed to just doing it on your page. They have advertising guidelines like any service about the content of advertising, and they have a brand and resource center about how you can use the Facebook logo in your own advertising, because you can take their logo and their words and put them in your ads, say follow us on Facebook, and use the Facebook logo, but they do have some rules. And they have given a call here and there to major marketers who have used it in an inappropriate way. Twitter is a little more flexible, because the nature of the system is just so much more open. You know, unless you protect your tweets, everything is out there, people can see it. So it's a very open service, and the terms basically say, we, Twitter, can use your content in any way we want, and we're going to license it to third parties to use it any way they want. So they set up their API, and as long as you follow their rules and not try to hack the API and just work within its functionality, there's tremendous freedom to use the content on Twitter in advertising. Now that's between you and Twitter. As with respect to other advertising rules and regulations, that's a different story. But Twitter is making it very easy for you. Twitter's even gotten very specific about how you can use tweets in broadcast and in other offline media. And they also have branding guidelines about how you can use their trademark. So Little law school 101 for you for 2 seconds. How can every social media service exist with all the infringing content and offensive content and this and that out there? How is it possible? Well, social media services have immunity from liability in 2 ways. And this is important for anyone in this room that decides you're going to set up your own little social service on your website or for a client. Number 1, a service like YouTube is not liable for copyright infringement for people uploading clips from the Colbert Report, as long as they have what's called a DMCA policy to pull content down. So if you're going to run a service and you're going to have user-generated content on your service, it's very important to implement such a policy. On the other side, if you're looking at YouTube and you see someone put up some of your content and you don't want it there, you can have it taken down. Again, there's a process to do this. And as long as YouTube follows this process, they're not liable. Now, what if someone says something really bad about you on a Twitter post or on a blog? There's a second great piece of immunity for those services. It's this law written back in the mid-90s called the Communications Decency Act, which basically says no provider of a service is going to be treated as the speaker of content. So if someone posts something really bad on Twitter, Twitter's not liable for that content. There was actually an interesting lawsuit filed about 2 weeks ago. A designer is suing Courtney Love because Courtney Love posted a bunch of tweets saying that this fashion designer is using drugs, is selling drugs, is a prostitute, she's awful to her kids, I mean, everything under the sun. Twitter's not liable for this stuff. And let me give you a very good example of how this works. There's this website, don'tdatehimgirl.com. Now, don't need to explain to you what this site is about. It's not for women to say what thoughtful, caring human beings their boyfriends are. It's for them to say, well, you know, what they really think of them. So there was a case involving don'tdatehimgirl.com. There was a guy in Pennsylvania, Todd Hollis, who happened to be a lawyer, but he was a real estate lawyer and didn't know anything about this. And some women wrote bad things about him. One woman said he has herpes. Another said, heard he was gay. And he actually wrote to the site and they took it down. Another woman said, he gave me an STD. He wrote to the site again, they took it down. And then another woman said, his crib is a dump. And eventually the site said, you know, maybe we should not take these posts down because maybe Todd's not the greatest character in the world. Well, Todd went to law school. He said, I'm a lawyer. It's America. No one can say this about me and get away with it. So he decides to sue the website. But this is exactly what the law is designed to protect. And Todd lost his case because the website is simply not liable for this. The individuals who post the content, they can be liable. So I'm not telling everyone in this room to go on Twitter and say what you really think about your worst enemy, because you will be responsible for that sort of information. Another very important thing you need to know, and there's been a lot of articles written on this, the FTC came out with updates to their endorsements and testimonial guidelines. And they were clarifying about what are the rules of the road when bloggers post on behalf of companies where they have a relationship with. For instance, a marketer hires a blogger to go out and talk about their product, or the marketer gives free products to a blogger and says, please go out and talk about us. The FTC is very concerned about this and says that you must disclose online your relationship with the marketer. They even gave example of hashtags you could use in Twitter. And there has been one enforcement action in this area. In August, there was a PR firm called Reverb Communications. They were hired by some gaming companies and to go out and promote the quality of their games. They were going on iTunes and pretending to be users and posting positive reviews about the games. And the FTC said, this is exactly what we're concerned about. We don't like when people are hired to go on social media, to go on blogs and say positive things and not tell that they're being paid to do this. And the interesting thing, the FTC said, this is no new law. They said these are long-held principles of truth in advertising. I don't know how many of you were in the keynote session before with Dr. Drew, but you know, as a lawyer, sometimes I was cringing with some of the slides about, you know, 99% guaranteed this and that and everything. There actually are laws you got to pay attention to. If it's true, it's fantastic to say it, but make sure it's true. All right, social media has gone mainstream. As I said, I work with a lot of major advertising agencies, and they're all getting into this. I'm going to show you now a commercial that was a very, very popular commercial last year.
Hello, ladies. How are you? Fantastic. Does your man look like me? No. Can he smell like me? Yes. Should he use Old Spice body wash? I don't know. Do you like the smell of adventure? Do you want a man who smells like he can bake you a gourmet cake in the dream kitchen he built for you with his own hands? Of course you do. Swan dive into the best night of your life. So ladies, should your man smell like an Old Spice man? You tell me.
Okay, this was just a creative commercial that Old Spice made with their advertising agency, Wyden & Kennedy. And I bring it up because we worked on this campaign, and it was very exciting. And then the ad agency called us up and said, you know, we want to do a social media promotion with this because the Old Spice man is becoming so trendy. Everyone's talking about him, and we're going to do something really, really cutting edge. So what they did is they took the actor, his name is Isaiah Mustafa, actually a former football player, and they had him come to Wyden & Kennedy Studios offices in Portland, Oregon. And for 2 days, they had him in a studio, and they were reading tweets online when people talked about the Old Spice man. And what they would do is then quickly, within like 30 minutes, write a 30-second commercial and film it and post it on YouTube right away, speaking back to that person who posted on Twitter. So somebody may post on Twitter, and within an hour or two, there was actually a commercial live on the internet speaking back to that individual. Some of you may know in our industry a person by the name of Peter Shankman. See a lot of people nodding their heads. His Twitter handle is Skydiver. So he posted on Twitter about the Old Spice man, and within about an hour, this appeared on YouTube.
Skydiver tweets via the website Twitter. Seriously, Old Spice man. But if you're going to do a video featuring me, I fully expect to wake up the next day with your abs, smiley face emoticon. Well, guess what, my skydiving friend? Get ready for 18 rock-hard abs come tomorrow's morn. But be warned, abs are fickle little creatures and need to be caressed by the female hand on a regular basis. It's a lot of work. I just hope you're up for the challenge.
So this was an incredibly successful campaign. In the advertising press, the traditional advertising media was just blown away about how many hits and how many views and the response and interacting with people on Twitter. There's actually those new commercials you may have seen for Triscuits where they drop off like a crate of Triscuits in someone's house, or maybe it's like Wheat Thins because someone has tweeted. The point is, social media is going mainstream. Every advertiser is thinking about it. It's incredibly important for affiliate marketing, but you can really take this and go to any advertiser and say, you know, I'm the social media expert. I can help you get there. All right, let me quickly turn it over to Sal here, and we'll talk to some people who are actually out there in the trenches working on things.
Morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Like I said, I work for a company called NetExponent. We manage affiliate programs for a number of our clients. Gary did a great job talking about, you know, all of the social media aspects out there and their legal implications and things like that. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how social media is being used in affiliate channel and some different things. Obviously, everybody's talking about Facebook and Twitter and, you know, all those sorts of things. It's, you know, I went to 2 conferences last year, and people asked the questions, you know, what is advanced social media, and what does social media really mean, and what are the, you know, what are the marketing techniques we can use to really capitalize on social media? And, you know, the thing really is, you know, there's no real trick to social media. It's about relationships, and it's, you know, just being real, engaging people in conversation. And one thing that people are not really talking about as much is podcasting, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that. Podcasting's been around for a long time. It's the not-so-new social medium. If you're not aware, the current state of podcasting, percentage of Americans listening to a podcast is 45%, up from 43% a year ago. It equates to a huge number, 70 million Americans. It's a large demographic. The Podcast Consumer Index, you know, they engage in social media on a regular basis. They're a very engaged audience. Podcast listeners are very loyal to their podcast themselves. You know, these podcasters and the podcasting audience, it's, you know, migrated from being predominantly early adopters, you know, quote unquote techies, you know, that type of thing, and it's more resembling mainstream media now. The great thing about podcasting and utilizing it is, you know, it fits so many genres. There's podcasts out there for business, technology, comedy, news, media. You know, it spans so many demographics, so many different genres. You know, if anybody's a Lost fan, I mean, one of the biggest podcasts out there for a while was the Lost Fanatics podcast, out there forever. So, you know, what does this mean for affiliate marketing, and, you know, why am I talking about podcasts, and how do people monetize podcasts, and, you know, all that sort of stuff. You know, a CPA model with podcasting is definitely possible. We've done it, we've proved it. Audible has a long-standing affiliate program on the CJ network. It's been around since 2003, I believe. You know, we wanted to really find something different and expand and figure out a way to do that. There's an affinity for Audible being spoken word audiobooks and podcasting. There's just a real affinity there for that audience and their product. So what we did is we created customized referring URLs for these podcasts to do live reads, and having a podcast, Audible.com sponsor an individual's podcast. So anybody could get into this. We pay them on a CPA basis. It required some technology. We partnered with LinkTrust. If you're not familiar, they have a booth here. They provide a technology for affiliate marketing as well. You know, and we had to do some custom programming on our end and build some things out. But this type of model is definitely possible. The content, the key here is the content and offers can be tailored specifically for the podcasting audience. You know, like I said, there's so many genres of podcasts, from comedy to news to business to tech. The great thing about Audible is they offer audiobooks in all those different genres as well. So, you know, when somebody's doing their live read, you know, they can say, hey, go to audibletrial.com/yourpodcast and get your free audiobook, but they can also tailor it to their audience and say they can get the latest new comedy book by Jon Stewart, you know, or the latest business audiobook or tech. As I mentioned before, fans of podcasts, they're loyal. Somebody that listens to a podcast generally listens to it over and over again. They're, you know, really loyal to the person who delivers that content. And the key here is that podcasts live on forever. Once that content is created, you know, it sits on their website or on a server. They list their podcast in podcast directories. A lot of them, you know, iTunes is probably one of the biggest podcast directories out there. And, you know, the fans being loyal, they're sharing the content, you know, on Facebook and Twitter. They're talking about it. They're engaging in the conversation. They're blogging about podcasts. All this sort of stuff is going on. So, you know, how did we do it? What did we do to find these podcasts? You know, mature affiliate programs, like I mentioned, like an Audible, they have issues, and, you know, they struggle with trying to find growth outside of the quote-unquote super affiliates. I mean, we all love our super affiliates. We know who they are. But, you know, at the end of the day, clients want more results. How do we stop, you know, making this one affiliate, you know, drive all of our volume, and how do we find more? How do we do more? The trick here is that podcasts and bloggers alike, they're elusive. You know, you can go to Google all day and try to find the next greatest podcast, but the likelihood is, you know, a podcaster may not even have a website. If they do, they probably don't have their contact information listed. They may have a contact form, you know, so it's really difficult. One-to-one recruitment in this area, you know, it's a lengthy process. It's a little cumbersome. You know, so we developed a strategy to mass recruit these podcasts, and what we did is we started going where these podcasters and bloggers even hang out, you know, and where they're going to list their services. So podcasts need to market their service. They go to podcast directories, just like, you know, any other websites listed in Google or anywhere else. These guys are utilizing podcast directories. So what we do is we're partnering directly with them. Some listed here: Podfeed, iBiz Radio, Podcast Pickle. You know, we let these podcast directories do the heavy lifting, and what we do is, you know, we pay them on a CPA basis as well. You know, they'll go out and send an email saying, hey, you can make money with your podcast, you know, and then we deliver them to a landing page where they find out all about this Audible podcast program we've created, deliver the signups, and it's been really successful. So I was going to keep this brief, and if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to contact me, or, you know, hopefully talk to you after the show. Bring up Wade.
All right. I'll do the quick tech support run here.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start by saying it's a real treat for me to be here on day 2 of the convention. Usually, I speak on day 3 when all you want me to do is be quiet and pass the coffee. But it's an honor to be here with Sal and Gary today. I'm here today to share with you one case study of something that we did to help a merchant introduce themselves on social media and interact with the customers, tear down some of those walls, and use social media for what it's really there for, which is to break down the walls, to interact directly with your customers, to find your customers, to join the conversation, become part of it, and of course, promote what you're there for. The case study that I'm going to talk to you about today involved a fashion e-tailer that was not well known that came to us and said, we really need your help with our social media. We're just not getting any traction. We're out there every day. We're on Facebook. We're on the Twitter, which I must say is a red flag if they call it the Twitter. And we're just not making any real traction. We're posting. We're talking about our products. We're trying to get people excited. So what we did is we took a step back, because I'm sure, as all of you as marketers know, you would never walk into a room and without introducing yourself to say, hey, who wants to buy some dog food? Line up here. That's not a very effective way to do it. You have to take the time to get to know the audience, who in the audience might be receptive to what you have to say, and you have to join the conversation. You can't just start off in that direction, and that's what we did for this client. We took a step back. We looked at their traffic logs to see where were these people coming from who were interested in what they had to say, and we found that actually they did have some activity on Twitter. People who had found them were interested in them. So we took a look at who were these people on Twitter and why were they interested. And what we found, and I want to share this, I'm going to skip ahead here because I want to share this tool with you, search.twitter.com. You can go in and type in, and you can do this on Twitter as well, but we found this tool to be very helpful. You can check out trends, you can type in any product, you can go and type in whatever it is you're looking to sell or buy, and just look at what the conversation is at the present time on Twitter, and see who are the people who are influencing that conversation, who are the people who are writing the most, and then look at how many people are following them. Are they worthy of being followed? Did they just make a random reference to your product in a joke, or are they actually making a review or some kind of valid comment? And so what we did was we used that to see who were the people that we needed to target. And what we learned for this e-tailer was that the main people who were driving them all of their traffic were mommy bloggers, people who were talking about the product. So what we did was we looked at Twitter, and we've targeted the people who had the most followers or were following the most people, who were getting retweeted, and we simply approached them and said, we want to introduce you to a new merchant in the area. You may not even be aware of them, because I'll tell you, in this sector where this merchant was located, if the 900-pound gorilla was Kleenex, they were Joe's nose blowers. They were not well known. So we took the time to say, here's this new merchant, let's introduce them. So what we did was we got the merchant to agree to actually talk to these mommy bloggers. So we set up, has anyone in this room ever attended a Twitter party? Are you familiar with the concept of Twitter parties? This worked very well for this particular brand because it was fashion, and we were targeting mommy bloggers. So we set up a Twitter party and invited them to come and sit down and hear from this woman who had designed fashion for women, hear about the product, hear about how it might help other mommy bloggers monetize their blog by writing about it. And we had them on Thursday evenings for 2 hours. You could sit back with a glass of wine, hear from this woman, ask questions. We gave away free products. We offered to sponsor contests to get people interested. We took the time to educate them about this brand. We got a lot of people very excited about it. Pretty soon this brand had Women's Wear Daily calling, asking how they could hear more, learn more. So they kind of jumped ahead a few steps because they took the time to know their audience, which I think it was the research and taking the time to find the people who are making those conversations on Twitter that really worked for them. So we found those key influencers, we sponsored the contest, and then we offered them to sponsor their own Twitter parties so that they could have people come and tell their own customers about them, and it would grow exponentially in that way, which is what you always hope for in social media. You always hope there's that viral aspect, that you're not just calling out into the forest, that somebody's going to shout back and share it with their friends as well. And what we found was that was very successful. We then had people calling, well, how can I sponsor my own contest? So we developed a separate program for mommy bloggers who wanted to find out about this product for themselves. Maybe they couldn't come to the Twitter party. So the merchant actually agreed to send them a free sample so that they could write a review. And then if they liked the product, then they would host a Twitter party and get people going and on and on and on. So in this way, exponentially, they began to grow because word of mouth through Twitter, because these people were hearing about it in this way. And one of the requirements for going to the Twitter party was you had to retweet the invitation to all of your followers, and you had to bring 10 people to the Twitter party yourself in order to participate and keep it going. So this is just, I realize this is just one very anecdotal story about how social media can work, but it really is all about taking the time to get to know people and interacting with them and giving the chance to interact with you. How many merchants do we have in the room today? Are we all affiliates, or do we have a few merchants? So, and how many of you are pretty active in social media now, or are you still kind of shouting into the forest? Anybody really active, making any headway? I suppose that's why you're here. Okay. Well, if you have anything that you think might work for a Twitter party where you really want to educate people about what it is you're doing, I recommend it. It's an excellent way to get started. And basically what you do is you just create a hashtag, and you can go to hashtag.org to see which hashtags have already been taken. Fortunately, this is still new enough that it's not like websites where only draculasblood.swiss is left. There's still many good hashtags out there. So you can go and find a hashtag. Then you simply come up with a statement, put that hashtag on there to start inviting people and get them to your party. It's a great way to tear down that wall and get started. I know a lot of people with social media, they make one of two mistakes. They either jump in right away and start talking before they've introduced themselves and really sputter, or they just kind of sit back and lurk and they're kind of scared to make that first step. This is a great way to make an introduction for your product or your brand. And if anyone has any questions for me, we do have a booth here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I think we're going to open it up to questions now. Thank you.
All right. Sorry, I'll just leave our slide there with our contact info. So actually, I want to ask, Sal and Wade, a few questions. I guess in terms of services, whenever we start talking about social media, you talk about the Facebook and the Twitter, and that seems to be about it. I mean, what else is important for clients? I mean, I actually was listening to the news this week, and they were talking about some criminal, and they said he posted something on his MySpace page, and I'm like, who has a MySpace page? I mean, than grunge bands. So. From your work with clients and what you see and what you recommend, what other services are being used or should be used?
Well, I think that's a great question, and I think for those of you who read Feedfront magazine, which is in your packet for this convention, it always is a red flag when people only talk about Facebook or Twitter, because in reality, we consider social media to be anything that breaks down that wall and gives you direct access to your target or your customers. So we consider forums to be social media. So, I mean, obviously YouTube, directories in some cases, let me see what else, podcasts, as Sal said, are a great way to break down that wall and speak directly to the people. So whenever we're approached about social media, we really take the time to learn about the merchant and find out what it is they're selling. Is it conducive to video? Is it something that would be better in audio format? To really target what social media they should be leveraging. As far as specific things, it really does vary based on what they're doing. But on one of my presentations, I had a slide that showed the logos of all the so-called social media sites, and it doesn't fit on a page. I mean, there are literally millions now. So it really does depend.
Yeah, I'll just add quickly. I mean, I think the social media world, if you're just talking about Facebook and Twitter, you're missing out on a whole bunch of things. And if you think you have a social media campaign and you only have a Facebook account, you don't have a social media campaign. I mean, you need to be blogging, you need to be on Facebook, you need to be on Twitter, you need to be on Dig and everywhere else. So, and all those things need to be firing on all cylinders, and the messaging and the communication needs to be, delivering the same message across the board.
So when you guys deal with clients and you're recommending social media and it goes up to CMO who may be in his late 50s and gets nervous about it and thinks it's just something that his teenage kids do, I mean, what sort of obstacles do you face from marketers who have not taken the first step in social media? Well, what's holding them back from getting involved?
Well, from our perspective, it's always been time and the willingness to commit the time, because as Sal said, he's right. It's a tremendous amount of time, because you do have to be firing in all those cylinders in all these different areas and make sure that you're consistent and constant. And so I would say time is always the biggest constraint, because you get into it you get out of it what you put into it. And for our clients, that's always the hardest thing, is to get the commitment of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we manage affiliate programs for our clients, and, going back a couple of years ago, they, were really scared about affiliates using social media. What are affiliates going to say about me on Twitter or Facebook? Now, it's changed. I mean, 3 years later, they're embracing it. They want affiliates to tweet about them and, write a Facebook post and, sponsor their podcast and, all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, it's changed drastically, I think, in the last couple of years. I mean, just as the social media landscape has changed drastically over the last couple of years. So I think it varies by, client and who, what type of product they're selling and what message they're trying to get out there. So.
And to Sal's point, I think it's interesting. Most clients are concerned, what are they going to say about us? We've actually found that in most cases, affiliates, because in the back of their mind somewhere, their thought is, this is a partnership, we both need to look good, we both need to make money. We've had affiliates who've told us, we'll review that product for you, and if we don't like it, we just won't say anything. So I don't think we've ever had a really negative experience when working with affiliates on social media.
And is it working best for branding, for actual sales, for lead gen? I mean, where do you see, and maybe it depends on the brand that is being promoted, but where do you see the successes for social media, and where sometimes is it not appropriate for a company?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right there. I mean, each advertiser is going to be unique. The podcast program we set up for Audible, that's not going to work for every advertiser and every client. So, we're really selective in, what the strategy is, and developing the strategy particularly for that client, and their goals and their metrics for success. So, we always try to deliver what the client is looking for, whether it is, to be out there on a more, branding basis. If they're looking for a lead gen campaign, we're using social media and reaching out to bloggers and things like that just for lead gen to recruit affiliates and things like that, and to recruit podcasts like we're doing. So.
When we're approached, it tends to be more from a branding perspective, but certainly no merchant would turn down sales. But that's always how we begin to approach it, is let's work on the brand and then the sales will come. Okay.
I also want to mix in questions from the audience. Now, as you saw from the slide earlier, what you should do is you text your message to 22333, and then you raise your hand, stand up, and read to me what you sent via text message, and then we can answer the question. Yes, sir.
I've heard two different things, and just a question as to, if you are blogging, do you use the same material between different blogs, or do you change the material?
You mean in keeping the messaging consistent? So,
Yeah.
It depends on, again, what your strategy is for your overall campaign. If you're talking about your blog on your website that, you have there, there's no reason if you write a blog post, you should immediately add a Facebook status that you just wrote that blog post, and you should immediately tweet that you just have this blog post. So those messages are going to be consistent. You'll probably put the title of the blog post, that sort of thing. On Facebook, hopefully they're going to engage in conversation with you and like it and share it and all that sort of stuff. I mean, keeping the messaging consistent, I think, is key. If you're talking about blogging or doing things elsewhere outside of your own website, I don't know that you want to duplicate the same content you just wrote on your site to do it somewhere else. It's probably not the greatest idea. But
yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You'll get in trouble for duplicate content then.
Yeah, and I think also to that point about treating the media, respecting the new type of media that it is. A big thing, if you've been in elevators in a lot of buildings, in major cities, you have the Captivate television screens in the corner. Sometimes there are people who are making little commercials specifically for that medium, for the elevator, and others who are just replaying their television commercial, and there's no sound. So the television commercial is you just have someone standing there and their mouth is moving, and it makes absolutely no sense. And they've spent money on this. So I see that's really effective when clients look at a medium specifically and try to take advantage of what that medium is. And then at the same time, you have to be consistent, because say you have a promotion that you're promoting in print or in display ads, you need to have that same promotion in social media, and the timing and when it expires and the conditions, making sure it's all consistent. Yeah, other questions from the audience before, yeah.
So as you open up this conversation, you're obviously looking for, the social proof. So what happens on the other end, all of a sudden you open up the conversation between people on Facebook selling something, and then someone has something bad to say. And then all of a sudden you get that other aspect of it as well. And if you address that person, then other people might say, hey, I can talk to these people and say something bad, and start sparking negative social proof. So have you found or experienced anything like that, and how have you dealt with that in trying to increase positive? If you start getting real self-promotional, people might go against that and speak more negatively.
There are a number of ways to handle that. There are a ton of bad examples out there of how people have handled customer service through social media. I was at a presentation last year that highlighted a number of examples. The worst thing you can do is run away and stop engaging in conversation. I mean, if you think you're going to go hide after a bad customer experience or somebody says something negative about your brand, the worst thing you can do is run away and stop engaging. I mean, people have shut down entire social media campaigns and, put up, or blocked their Facebook page and shut the wall off and not let anybody comment anymore. You're only going to get blasted. They're going to find some other outlet to bash you in, in that regard. It's only going to make them more angry, that sort of thing. So you need to engage them in conversation. You need to, use your customer service skills, and treat these people like human beings. I mean, if you think that anybody on Twitter or Facebook is, not a real person, that's a bad, bad position to take. So.
Absolutely. The best approach is to just honestly address it, and whether it comes to apologies and trying to remedy it, and definitely don't run away, definitely don't call them names, don't sick your friends on them,
don't make a joke of it.
It's happened to us a lot. Yes, exactly. It's happened to us on forums more than any place else, which we also consider to be social media, where people, because a lot of times in forums you're anonymous and you're under a handle and we don't know who you are, and you're just throwing out these things. And a lot of times in the forums what they're saying isn't even true. So really we try to correct that statement and say, well, no, this is actually what happened, and here's our, and then let other people agree, because over time, when you get the people who know the truth about you, they're going to come up, and our experience has been that other people speak up for you as well.
Exactly, and you got to filter through the noise. I mean, some people just complain about everything or have a bad thing to say about so you have to be selective, and it's really a real engaging relationship. If you're going to have a social media campaign, you need to be prepared to treat these people like human beings, and
You have to rise above it. You have to close your eyes and think of England.
Yeah, I've actually gotten this question from the legal perspective many times, that someone has said something bad about our company and our brand and social media. What should we do? And I don't want to take the food off the table of my legal brethren, but it's probably not the best thing to call your lawyer first. There's probably business ways to deal with it, because Sal said you can't ignore it. It's there. And if you participate in social media, it'll be there, and it may be on your Facebook page. If you don't participate in social media, it will still be out there. You won't be able to ignore it. I was on a panel with one of the social media experts from State Farm Insurance a few months ago, and he was talking about how there is this one woman in Florida who has this vendetta against State Farm Insurance and have dedicated her life to trying to take them down. And that there have been times where 90% of the Twitter posts are coming from this one woman. And they've tried to battle her on legal grounds a couple of times about disabling accounts and using a trademark in her account that made it deceptive. I think her latest account is simply State Farm Sucks. So it's pretty clear that she does not work for State Farm. And I think she actually follows me on Twitter right now, which is a little freaky. But this is what people do, and they try to deal with her by putting out correct information. And if she said something false, saying it's true. If she violates the terms of service of Twitter, they report her. They've gotten some accounts terminated, but they can't get them all terminated. As a lawyer, I said, why don't you just pay her some money to make her go away? But maybe there's some corporate opposition to doing that. But it certainly keeps the social media expert at that company fully employed, which is a good thing too.
We don't negotiate with terrorists.
Exactly. One of the questions came up before about consistent messaging. And it brings up a question. I mean, a lot of us now are starting in the social media and affiliate space to work with more traditional marketers. When I was talking about the Old Spice example, traditional marketers are getting involved. What have you seen in terms of folks that want to collaborate with their offline methods or their, traditional, it's odd to call, display advertising traditional, but it is traditional advertising. And how do they coordinate that affiliate channel and social media channel?
Well, I will say this. Whenever that's happened, they've seen amazing results. It's kind of like the example of, all of you being affiliate marketers, I'm sure you have a PPC team, you have an SEO team, or whether that's a person or a team. I'm sure you've all seen the results of what happened when those groups work together. Because obviously the PPC team has been paying for all of these terms, so they know very instantly the ROI of this particular term. And if they were to go and talk to the SEO team and say, wow, look at how we're converting for Animal Farm, the term. And the SEO team is going after something completely different, and they've spent 6 months optimizing for it. When those two teams get together, it's magic. It's the same thing with offline and online, and that's what we've seen. I'll be honest, we don't see it a lot, but when we do, they're amazed, and then they're sold on the fact that they need to be doing it.
Yeah, if you're an advertiser or merchant, and you are doing attribution management right now, if you're using something like clear sailing or anything like that, you're definitely way ahead of the curve, because you really need to pay attention to what channels are influencing others, and as those messages, are more consistent across the board, we see huge correlations between increases in display spend, versus your PPC campaigns, and also upticks in your affiliate channel, and the same with social media. The more an advertiser's out there, consistently messaging and tweeting and engaging people in conversation, or getting conversation started on Facebook and things like that, it influences all those channels, and that's like I said before, keeping all these channels firing on all cylinders, that extends beyond social media, and making sure the messaging is consistent and the offer is correct, and the landing page and the banner assets, you have the same messaging and the same images, and all that sort of stuff. And it's amazing how many advertisers still don't get that, where it says one thing here and another thing here, and it's unbelievable. But the more you keep those messages consistent, the bigger the increases you'll see across the board in all your channels.
Mm-hmm. Another question from the audience? Yes.
I just want to invite everyone. There's a group called Social Media Club, and they're a global organization with chapters. I'm the Social Media Club Chicago, so if you're interested in social media, we'd love to have people throughout the country, throughout the world, and if you have questions, we'd love to know. Thank you. The socialmediaclub.org.
Okay, great.
Hashtag paid ad. That was sponsored. And what sort of impact have you seen from the different devices? Now we're iPad explosion. And when you were working on a campaign a year ago, you weren't thinking of the iPad, and especially with younger generation, very comfortable with these devices. I was trying to explain to my two 11-year-olds the other day about using a typewriter. Back in high school and college, and I was pantomiming. I'm going ding, ding, and they look at me and they go, "What's the ding?" And it took a while to explain what was happening. They go, "Oh, that was the return key?" I'm like, yes, that's the return key. But it makes us think. Devices are changing so quickly, and you want things to look good on different devices, and there's a different user experience. How much is that factoring into what you're doing with clients?
Yeah, mobile is obviously the hot new thing. It's not new, but it's something everybody's talking about just more recently. The Android phone has come out. Apps are being developed consistently. Even Windows is still trying to make its stake in the mobile world as well. The iPhone, the iPad, Android, everything's changed everything. A lot of our clients have mobile apps. They're using social media to drive people to those apps, and again, it's about delivering value. Is your app just some standalone thing that there is no interaction or engagement, you know, or does it really provide value? Does it provide value to your consumer and in a way that adds to the experience with your brand?
Yeah, that's what we're seeing as well, as our merchants going after the apps that help, that take whatever it is that they do and melt it down to an app that will be on these phones. And that, we're seeing that this year more than ever as well. I mean, we've all been hearing about it for a few years.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing people developing it and getting it out there.
And I think people, like, they had dipped their toe in maybe a year ago or something like that,
Right.
and, you know, now people are in, like, you know, version 2.0, and they're upgrading their apps and, you know, delivering that extra value now. You know, some of them may have had something more static that was just like this content piece, and now people are trying to figure out how to engage more on mobile.
And I think we've heard mobile, this is the year of mobile since what, 2005?
Every year.
Yeah.
the year
And
of
now I'm
mobile.
starting to actually start to believe it by what I'm seeing.
This online marketing thing's never going to last.
Yes.
Just to that point, the Wynn Hotel in their app actually has live tweets scrolling through the bottom of their app, which I thought was interesting. I don't think I've seen another application or brand do that.
Cool.
Yeah, I already told you, took me 5 minutes to figure out how to open the curtains this morning, and now you want me to start dealing with their apps. Okay, well then that will be helpful. All right, so since we're talking about new apps, you know, new devices and whatnot, you know, let's put on, you know, our Karnak hats and try to look into the future and see what we can figure out is going to happen. I mean, you know, if you look back, I have a friend who's doing an around-the-world trip for about 2.5 years, and I saw her recently, and I said, wow, you left before Twitter. You know, it was like a lifetime ago. I mean, what do you foresee things looking like in, you know, 18 months, 24 months, 36 months, in terms of where people are spending their time, what's successful, and maybe what's dying out? Maybe 2012 is the year of mobile.
Sure. I've been doing this for 10 years, which seems like a lifetime at this point. You know, and how things have changed over that period is staggering. I mean, you know, as new technology continues to grow, you know, it's about embracing it. You can't be afraid of it. You have to embrace it. You have to figure out how your brand is going to deliver a message in these new mediums, whether it's mobile, whether it's social media, podcasting, et cetera. You know, I think certain things stay true, though. As advertisers, as affiliates even, I mean, you have a brand to protect, you know, want to make money as well. You know, content is still king out there. I mean, that phrase has been going around in affiliate marketing for a really long time. You have to deliver and add value. You can't fool the public. People aren't stupid. So, you know, I think going forward in the future, those things are going to stay consistent, and regardless of what new technology comes out. I mean, you know, you have Google TV now that's out there. Video and YouTube is exploding, obviously, and has been for the last couple of years. Mobile is on its way up. So, I don't have a tarot card, but I think we all know where things are going. I mean, it's going to continue to grow.
I think the trend that I see personally is just the level of integration. I'm amazed at the number of friends I have in the last year who've dropped their landline phone, they only have cell, they've dropped their cable service, they watch everything on Hulu or YouTube or whatever service they can use, Netflix, streaming, and things like that. And you know, I'm amazed now when I'm on a plane, you won't see anyone without an iPad. It's all becoming smaller, integrated, everything in one place. And I think we're seeing that with social media to a certain extent as well. They're all kind of juggling back and forth to add all the features that others have and have it all in one place. So for me, at the same time that all these possibilities seem large, it seems like it's all narrowing into a point in some way. I think that's the biggest trend that I would comment on this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think another important thing that, you know, I've seen from my clients is reporting and being able to integrate this information. I mean, it is, if you ever deal with marketers, you know, they look at market reports and they look at research and they want to see how effective things are. And that happens in every channel. And, you know, and it's very robust, you know, in internet advertising, you know, with looking at analytics there as well. It's coming of age in terms of social media, in terms of getting that type of robust reporting and information. But I think that's something that if you work on campaigns for clients, they're going to come back and ask for you, you know, show me the ROI, show me the reporting, show me how this helped me. I know it was cool, and I know that, you know, it drove traffic, but, you know, you've really got to prove to me that my dollars were well spent. Yes?
Speaking of reporting, you guys seen a really good tool for reporting on the social media side?
That is, that's definitely a tough one. Social media in and of itself has been, you know, the wild beast that's hard to tame. So it's you know, proving ROI on that channel. It's not, you know, the same as the affiliate channel or PPC where you can attribute that, you know, direct sale from this direct campaign. That's where attribution management, like I mentioned before, comes in, and seeing how channels influence each other. You know, that really helps. The more sophisticated tracking that you have on your back end, you know, is going to help as well. You know, just looking at your analytics and seeing, you know, all those things. I mean, Facebook is good at providing stats and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah, stats, we got really quiet because stats is the hard part of this. And that's one thing we're very clear about whenever anyone comes to us and asks for social media help is we just throw the question right back, well, what is it you want? So we know how to measure it for them, because in some cases it may just be, well, we want more fans out there talking about us, and we want to see over time that that's growing and the number of people who are giving us testimonials is changing. For some people, obviously, it's sales. So that's how we started, is by finding out, well, what is it that you want? And then being very honest about whether or not we can give it, because, you know, in some ways it is unmeasurable.
And that's where, you know, just as a side note, that the podcasting program that we created out there, you know, we had to make sure that that was, you know, measurable, and we, you know, had to develop, you know, some custom tracking and custom tools to make that all work. So, you know, if you want to track that sort of thing, you know, some custom integration is probably needed.
Yeah, and I have seen some tools. I mean, I think there's a company, maybe Radiant 6, or some other, you know, tools out there that will monitor, you know, the conversation, and maybe it will give you reporting on the conversation. But I think, you know, to that, you know, to tie together the conversation, your participation in social media and your campaigns, and at the end of the day, you know, ROI, tying all of that together, you know, that is the thing that the marketers are really looking for. Was there another hand over there? Yes.
I guess I'm not really clear on the question.
When you say the industry,
yeah.
You mean?
Large corporations that have large manufacturing industry, not service businesses, but they're manufacturing.
Yeah, you know, actually, I mean, I've seen in dealing with some marketing clients that are not service clients, but that, you know, produce a tangible product. They manufacture. In discussing social media, and it may be that some of them view that, you know, I don't need to be involved in this. And I was given a presentation at a fairly large marketer, and I was in a room with a bunch of lawyers, and I put up, you know, an unofficial Facebook page that someone had put up there. And they saw how many people liked the page and how many comments were there, and it was a room full of lawyers, and their jaw just dropped. That there was this conversation going on about their company and about their brand, and it was actually initiated by someone in their marketing department, and they had no idea, and there was no process in place. So, you know, while, you know, in some companies, in industries, you know, it's very easy, you know, click this link, come here, buy the product, sale, I can measure this all. And others, yeah, you know, where am I going to buy, you know, a, you know, bulldozer the size of that could take down a tree on Avatar? You know, is that going to be, you know, beneficial on social media? But it's like we said earlier, that the conversation is happening. And, you know, even I see in financial services industries, they want to use social media because the conversation is happening, and they want to speak with their customers and speak in the way that their customers are comfortable having a dialogue. So I think that's always a helpful thing. If you were in, say, pitching a marketer on social media campaigns, look on Twitter and look on Facebook and find their unofficial pages and then show it to them, and that'll make them change their tune in a real hurry.
And show them the competitor pages and what's going on there and what they're missing out on.
And I think the other thing there is, you know, the strategy for the industry that you're in, and maybe Twitter is not the place for you to be, and maybe it's, you know, industry forums and engaging in conversation where the people in your industry are. So don't always think that social media, you know, is just about, like we said, Twitter and Facebook. I mean, go out there and find local organizations, local forums, people to engage with. I mean, social media is just another way to engage people in relationships. So, you know, you have to develop the right strategy that's right for your brand.
And that's what's great about social media. There's a group and a page for everybody. So the more targeted the group that is, the more powerful it's going to be for the people. So if you have an owner of the company who's not buying into social media and he's just used to talking about tractors all day, if you show him a group where all they do is talk about tractors all day, you've just introduced him to heaven.
We have about 2.5 minutes left before you'll all be at the back of the line for sandwiches. So maybe we'll just each have a quick closing remark for everybody. Again, from my perspective, being a lawyer dealing with social media, I think there are just tremendous opportunities to be very creative and have very incredibly compelling campaigns. Just take a second to look at the terms and conditions and the rules for Twitter and Facebook. Either speak to your consultants who know or speak to your counsel that knows, because you would hate to spend a lot of time and effort to put together a campaign either for yourself or for your client, and then it gets pulled. And there have been campaigns that get pulled, and that is very, very upsetting to the marketer when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, and just in closing, I think we talked about, a lot of things here, about keeping the messaging consistent and, making sure you're doing the right strategy for your brand and things like that. I'd be happy to talk with anybody about, your strategy or, just to talk and, what your plans are and things like that. So I want to thank Gary and Wade. And
what I would say is social media is a great opportunity to hear from the people you want to know more about. And I always like to give some kind of little actionable thing you can take away from this. So if you haven't done it already, I would advise you all to set up a Google alert and track either your brand, your niche, some keywords, some things that are important to you, and see what people, get an alert sent to you, whether it's every day, every week, every month, that shows you what people are saying about the things you're interested in. That'll start to show you the opportunity that exists here. And I want to thank you all and thank Gary and Sal for being part of this.
Okay, in the last 30 seconds, you have all of our contact information. Actually, my firm occasionally puts out newsletters on issues such as this. If you're interested, just give me your business card. And please take the time to remind all session attendees to fill out the feedback forms. They may turn them into any staff member. Each day, 6 forms will be randomly drawn to receive a gold pass for the next show. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
thanks. Pleasure.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's good.